These 5 chilling stories take us to the serene, often breathtaking campgrounds of California, places where people go to escape, to reconnect with nature, and to find peace. But for some, these natural havens turned into scenes of unimaginable horror, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions, shattered families, and enduring mysteries. From a brutal quadruple homicide in a quiet mountain resort to a father shot in his tent while camping with his young daughters and a young woman found tragically murdered after decades as a cold case, these are the 5 California campground murders that will haunt you. If you love videos like this, hit the like button, tell us where you're watching from or what you think about these cases in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Cold Crime Cases so you don't miss out on future videos. Case 1. The Malibu Creek State Park Shootings, 2018. Case Introduction. Our first case takes us to a place of natural beauty, often synonymous with tranquility, Malibu Creek State Park in Los Angeles County, California. A verdant oasis of rolling hills, ancient oaks, and sparkling creeks, it's a popular spot for hikers, rock climbers, and campers, drawing people from the bustling city seeking solace in nature. But in 2018, this serene landscape became the backdrop for a series of terrifying, seemingly random shootings that brought fear and uncertainty to the community. The most tragic victim of these attacks was 35-year-old Tristan Beaudette, a bright and compassionate research scientist, a devoted father, and a beloved husband. Tristan was a man who cherished the outdoors, and on that fateful night in June 2018, he was doing what he loved, camping with his 2 young daughters, aged 2 and 4, in a tent in the campgrounds. Crime timeline. The first reported incident of mysterious shootings in the area actually predates Tristan's murder. As early as November 2016, there were reports of vehicles being shot at in the area around the park. These were often dismissed as isolated incidents, perhaps stray bullets or target practice. Then, in the fall of 2017, the incidents began to intensify. In November 2017, a camper was shot in the arm while sleeping in his tent. Days later, another vehicle was struck by gunfire. In January 2018, a woman sleeping in her car was shot in the leg. Each time, the victims were seemingly random, the attacks unprovoked, and the shooter vanished without a trace. A chilling pattern began to emerge, silent, precise attacks, often in the dead of night, in or near the park. The fear escalated on June 22, 2018. Tristan Beaudette had set up his tent with his 2 young daughters. They were asleep in their sleeping bags when, just before 4:45 a.m., a single gunshot pierced the night. The bullet struck Tristan in the head, killing him instantly. His daughters, miraculously, were unharmed, lying beside him in the tent. They woke to find their father unresponsive, unaware of the horror that had just unfolded. The silent killer had struck again, and this time taken a life. Investigation and evidence. The murder of Tristan Beaudette sparked a massive investigation. Law enforcement, initially hesitant to connect the previous shootings, now faced a clear homicide. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department launched an intensive manhunt. They deployed helicopters, canine units, and hundreds of deputies to comb the vast, rugged terrain of Malibu Creek State Park. The park was closed for an extended period, leading to widespread disruption and public anxiety. Authorities were tight-lipped about leads, which only fueled speculation and fear. The public dubbed the unseen assailant the Malibu Sniper. For months, the identity of the shooter remained a chilling mystery. Then, in October 2018, a breakthrough. Anthony Rauda, a 42-year-old transient known to frequent the area, was arrested on unrelated charges. Evidence, including a rifle and ammunition, was found in his possession during a subsequent search, linking him to the shootings. Ballistics tests confirmed the rifle was the weapon used in the attacks. Rauda had a history of trespassing and minor offenses in the park, but no clear motive for the shootings ever fully emerged. He was described as living off the grid, often camping in the brush. The connection was made through a combination of traditional police work, witness accounts, and eventually the critical ballistics evidence. Theories: what went wrong? So what drove Anthony Rauda to commit these acts of violence? Was he simply a reclusive individual who lashed out at perceived intruders on his territory? Was there a deeper psychological motive? The prosecution painted him as a dangerous individual, a hunter targeting people in the park. However, his defense argued there was no clear motive and that the evidence was circumstantial. The why remains elusive. Some question if law enforcement responded quickly enough to the earlier non-fatal shootings, which might have prevented Tristan Beaudette's death. Could more resources have been allocated sooner to track down the individual responsible for the initial acts of violence before they escalated to murder? The fear that gripped the Malibu community was palpable, a testament to the random and unpredictable nature of these attacks. Conclusion: Anthony Rauda was eventually convicted of Tristan Beaudette's murder, bringing a form of closure to his family and the community. However, the period of terror, the seemingly random nature of the prior shootings, and the unanswered questions about Rauda's specific motivations still linger. The case serves as a stark reminder that even in places of profound natural beauty, danger can lurk. What do you think drove Rauda to commit these heinous acts? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to Case 2, a disturbing case about the death of family members that is heavily twisted and still unsolved till date. Case 2, the Keddie Cabin 28 Murders, 1981. Case Introduction. On April 11, 1981, the Keddie Resort in Plumas County, California. A remote, picturesque setting nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains, a place of quiet tranquility that on this night would be shattered by an act of unspeakable violence. Our story centers around Glenna Sue Sharp, a 36-year-old mother who had moved to Keddie from Quincy, looking for a fresh start with her 5 children. She was a kind, resilient woman, deeply devoted to her family. Her eldest son, 15-year-old John Sharp, was a typical teenager, full of energy. And with them was Dana Wingate, a 17-year-old friend of John's who was simply spending the night. This was meant to be a quiet spring evening, filled with the simple joys of a family getaway. No one could have predicted the nightmare that was about to unfold in Cabin 28. Crime timeline. The day began as any other. Sue, John, Dana, and Sue's 2 younger children, 12-year-old Sheila and 10-year-old Greg, along with Greg's 5-year-old friend Justin, were all present in Cabin 28. At some point that evening, Sue's 14-year-old daughter, Tina, had gone to a party nearby. What transpired between late evening on April 11th and the early morning of April 12th remains a horrifying mystery. Around 7 a.m. on April 12th, Sheila Sharp returned to Cabin 28 after spending the night with a neighbor. What she discovered inside would forever scar her and haunt the small community of Keddie. The scene was pure horror. She found Sue, John, and Dana brutally murdered, their bodies bound with tape and electrical cords. The violence was extreme, with a hammer and a steak knife found at the scene believed to be the murder weapons. But here's the terrifying twist. Tina Sharp, Sue's 14-year-old daughter, was nowhere to be found. Vanished into thin air from a cabin of slaughter. The 2 younger boys, Greg and Justin, were found unharmed in an adjacent bedroom, miraculously spared from the carnage, seemingly having slept through the entire ordeal. How could such a horrific act occur without them stirring? And where was Tina? Investigation and evidence. The initial investigation into the Keddie murders was plagued with problems. Right from the start, crucial errors may have been made, potentially contaminating the scene and hindering the collection of vital evidence. Law enforcement, new to a case of such magnitude in a small rural area, struggled. They searched for Tina, but for 3 years she remained missing. Then, in 1984, a portion of her skull was discovered near Feather Falls, approximately 30 miles from Keddie, finally confirming her tragic fate. Over the decades, numerous suspects have been identified, interviewed, and then dismissed. Confessions were allegedly made but never substantiated. A handwritten note found at the scene has been a point of endless speculation. There were reports of possible serial killer connections, rumors of drug deaths, and even whispers of cult involvement. The initial police sketches of two potential suspects, described by witnesses who had seen them near the cabin, led nowhere concrete. The case became a tangled web of hearsay, suspicion, and conflicting accounts. The original prosecutor, now deceased, reportedly stated years later that he believed the killers were known and that the case could have been solved early on. A hammer found at the scene that could have been a key piece of evidence was reportedly mismanaged and potentially lost for a period of time. This lack of concrete, undeniable evidence, combined with alleged mishandling, has kept the case agonizingly cold for over 40 years. Theories: what went wrong? So, what happened in Cabin 28? Theories abound, from a botched robbery that escalated to a targeted attack fueled by personal animosity or even a drug-related vendetta. Some believe it was a single individual, while others are convinced multiple perpetrators were involved. Was it someone known to the family, or did a stranger descend upon the quiet resort? Many point to the alleged investigative failures in the crucial early hours and days as the primary reason the case remains unsolved. Was it a lack of experience, a shortage of resources, or perhaps something more insidious that allowed the killers to escape justice? The brutality of the crime suggests a deeply personal motive, yet no definitive motive has ever been established. The fact that the younger boys were left unharmed, sleeping through the nightmare, adds another layer of baffling complexity. Conclusion: the Keddie murders remain one of California's most haunting unsolved cases. The images of Cabin 28, the tragic loss of Sue, John, Dana, and Tina, continue to captivate and disturb true crime enthusiasts. With no arrests made and no definitive answers, the families are still searching for closure. What do you think happened inside Cabin 28? Do you believe the initial investigation failed, or was this a crime too complex to solve from the start? Let us know in the comments. Next, we journey to Lake Tahoe for a cold case that remained unsolved for decades, finally bringing justice after 44 years. Case 3. The Murder of Patricia Carnahan, 1979. Solved 2023. Case Introduction. Our third case takes us back in time to the summer of 1979 and to the breathtaking beauty of South Lake Tahoe, California. A popular destination known for its pristine waters, towering pines, and vibrant outdoor life. It draws thousands of visitors seeking relaxation and adventure. Among them was Patricia Carnahan, a vibrant 27-year-old woman, full of life and with her entire future ahead of her. Patricia was known for her kindness and her adventurous spirit. On that fateful August day, she was enjoying the serene atmosphere of a local campground, simply seeking a peaceful escape. Little did she know, her life was about to be tragically cut short, leaving a mystery that would baffle investigators and torment her family for over 4 decades. Crime timeline. The details surrounding Patricia's last known hours are scarce, adding to the perplexing nature of her case for so long. On August 15, 1979, Patricia Carnahan was at a campground in South Lake Tahoe. It's believed she was enjoying the outdoors, perhaps hiking or simply taking in the fresh air. At some point that day, she encountered her killer. What transpired in the moments leading up to her death remains largely unknown to the public. However, the grim discovery was made later that day. Patricia Carnahan was found brutally murdered at the campground. She had been strangled and severely beaten. The scene was horrific, a stark contrast to the natural beauty surrounding it. The immediate aftermath plunged investigators into a challenging situation. The remote location, the lack of immediate witnesses, and the nascent stage of forensic science at the time meant that capturing her killer would prove to be an uphill battle. The case quickly went cold, becoming another tragic statistic in the annals of unsolved crimes. Investigation and evidence. Despite the initial challenges at the scene, investigators did collect some crucial evidence, including a sexual assault kit that provided DNA. However, in 1979, DNA analysis as we know it today was still in its infancy. The technology simply wasn't advanced enough to generate a profile that could lead to an identification.
The DNA evidence was preserved, a silent witness waiting for science to catch up. Over the next 44 years, the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office never forgot Patricia. The case sat in file cabinets, but the hope for justice never faded. In 2015, the El Dorado County Cold Case Homicide Unit reopened Patricia's case. This was a critical turning point. With renewed dedication and access to vastly improved DNA technology, they submitted the preserved evidence for advanced forensic analysis and uploaded the profile into the CODIS, Combined DNA Index System. This national database, which wasn't available in 1979, proved to be the key. In 2023, after decades of waiting, a match was finally made. The DNA pointed directly to Harold W. Carpenter, a man who had been living nearby and had a criminal history. This breakthrough, made possible by the meticulous preservation of evidence and the relentless pursuit of justice by cold case detectives, finally allowed them to bring an arrest in Patricia Carnahan's murder. Theories: what went wrong? For over 4 decades, theories about Patricia's killer were largely speculative. Was it a drifter passing through the campground? Someone she knew who had a hidden dark side? The lack of any direct leads or suspects meant the case remained shrouded in mystery. What went wrong was less about investigative error and more about the limitations of technology at the time. The DNA evidence was there, but the tools to decipher its secrets weren't. Had the murder occurred today, the case might have been solved within days or weeks. However, the passage of time also brought challenges. Potential witnesses had passed away, memories faded. The greatest wrong was the agonizing wait for Patricia's family, who lived with the uncertainty for so long. Conclusion: the arrest of Harold W. Carnahan in 2023 brought long-awaited, though bittersweet, closure to Patricia's family. It's a powerful testament to the advancements in forensic science and the unwavering commitment of cold case units. While justice has finally been served, the tragedy of Patricia's life cut short at a beautiful campground remains. What do you think about the role of DNA technology in solving cold cases like Patricia's? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you love videos like this, hit the like button, tell us where you're watching from or what you think about these cases in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Cold Crime Cases so you don't miss out on future videos. Now we turn our attention to a more recent tragedy. A young man shot dead in his tent at a California campground, a case still desperately awaiting answers. Case 4. The Murder of Tyler Dickson, 2021. Unsolved. Case Introduction. Our fourth story brings us to a more recent and equally heartbreaking tragedy that unfolded in the spring of 2021. We travel to Bidwell Canyon Marina Campground, nestled near the serene waters of Lake Oroville in Butte County, California. This is a popular spot for fishing, boating, and camping, offering picturesque views and a sense of escape. It was here that 20-year-old Tyler Dickson, a young man with a bright future and a passion for the outdoors, decided to spend a peaceful night. Tyler was a beloved son, brother, and friend, described as hard-working and full of life. He was doing what countless others do, simply enjoying the tranquility of nature, sleeping soundly in his tent. But the dawn would bring a grim discovery, and a mystery that continues to haunt his family and the community. Crime timeline. On the evening of May 1, 2021, Tyler Dickson set up his tent at the Bidwell Canyon Marina Campground. The campsite was a quiet, unassuming spot, seemingly safe and secure. The details of what transpired in the early hours of May 2nd are chillingly sparse. At approximately 4 a.m., something unspeakable occurred. While Tyler was asleep in his tent, an assailant approached and, in a sudden and brutal act, shot him. Tyler was killed instantly. There were no witnesses immediately apparent, no sounds of a struggle, only the silent, deadly discharge of a firearm. It wasn't until later that morning, around 9:30 a.m., that Tyler's body was discovered in his tent by another individual. The discovery sent shockwaves through the campground and quickly alerted law enforcement. The image of a young man, peacefully sleeping, suddenly murdered in his own tent is profoundly disturbing and underscores the randomness and cruelty of the act. Investigation and evidence. The Butte County Sheriff's Office launched an immediate and extensive investigation into Tyler Dickson's murder. Detectives converged on the scene, meticulously processing the campsite for any clues. The initial challenge was immense, a seemingly unprovoked shooting in a relatively isolated location, with no clear suspect or motive. They conducted interviews with everyone in the vicinity, hoping to piece together the events of that night. Investigators canvassed the area, looking for forensic evidence, surveillance footage from nearby businesses or the marina, and any potential witnesses who might have heard or seen something unusual, no matter how minor. The silence around the crime, however, proved to be a significant obstacle. Despite their efforts, concrete leads were slow to materialize. The case remains a high priority for the Butte County Sheriff's Office. In an effort to generate new information, the governor's office even offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for Tyler's death, highlighting the baffling and frustrating nature of this unsolved case. Detectives have publicly appealed for anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward, believing someone out there knows what happened to Tyler. Theories: what went wrong? Why was Tyler Dickson targeted? Was it a random act of violence, a tragic encounter with a disturbed individual? Or was there a hidden motive, something known only to the killer? Theories range from a completely unprovoked attack by a stranger, perhaps a drifter or someone with malicious intent, to a potential personal vendetta that has yet to be revealed. The lack of any clear struggle or sign of forced entry into the tent suggests a swift and decisive act. What makes this case so particularly unsettling is the apparent randomness and the fact that Tyler was killed in his sleep, completely defenseless. For Tyler's family, the unanswered questions are a constant torment. What went wrong is simply that the killer managed to escape detection, leaving behind a profound void and an enduring mystery. Conclusion: Tyler Dickson's murder at Bidwell Canyon Marina Campground is a tragic reminder that even in places of peace, unthinkable acts can occur. His family continues to grieve and desperately seek answers, holding on to the hope that the reward or a fresh lead will finally bring justice. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant it seems, please contact the Butte County Sheriff's Office. What do you think happened to Tyler Dickson? Was he a random victim, or is there a hidden motive yet to be uncovered? Share your theories in the comments. Finally, we examine a solved case that took years to unravel, involving a young couple tragically murdered on a remote California beach. Case 5. The Jenner Double Murder, 2014. Solved. Case Introduction. For our final case, we travel to the rugged and often windswept coastline of Sonoma County, California, to a remote stretch of beach near Jenner, known as Fishhead Beach. While technically not a designated campground, this secluded spot, accessible only by a difficult path, was sometimes used by individuals seeking a private, off-the-grid camping experience. This is where, in August 2014, a beautiful and tragic story unfolded. Our victims were Lindsay Cutshall, a 22-year-old from Ohio, and Jason Allen, a 26-year-old from Michigan. This young Christian couple was on a cross-country road trip, a spiritual journey before heading to a youth ministry training in Colorado. They were filled with hope, faith, and the promise of a shared future. They were simply seeking a quiet place to rest for the night, nestled in their sleeping bags under the vast California sky. Crime timeline. Lindsay and Jason had been exploring the scenic redwood forests and coastal areas of Northern California. On August 14, 2014, they made their way to Fishhead Beach, a beautiful but isolated location south of the mouth of the Russian River near Jenner. They settled down for the night, zipped into their sleeping bags, and fell asleep under the stars, likely lulled by the sound of the Pacific Ocean. What happened next was a crime of horrifying randomness and brutality. Sometime between late evening on August 14th and early morning on August 15th, an assailant approached the sleeping couple. With a single-shot .45 caliber handgun, the killer shot both Lindsay and Jason in the head as they lay defenseless in their sleeping bags. The act was swift and silent, leaving no chance for them to fight back or even cry out. Their bodies were discovered the next day, August 15th, by a fisherman. The scene was shocking. 2 young lives extinguished so senselessly, in such a peaceful setting, with no apparent motive for such an egregious act. Investigation and evidence. The double murder of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen sent shockwaves through Sonoma County and captured national attention. The seemingly randomness of the crime, combined with the fact that the couple was from out of state, made the initial investigation incredibly difficult. Law enforcement, including the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, poured resources into the case. They investigated numerous leads, interviewed hundreds of people, and explored various theories, from a deranged serial killer to a local individual with a grudge. However, years passed, and despite extensive efforts, the case went cold. There was no obvious suspect, no clear motive, and the weapon, a unique .45 caliber handgun, remained elusive. Then, nearly a decade later, in 2013, a significant break occurred. A man named Sean Gollin, who lived locally, was arrested for an unrelated murder, the killing of his former girlfriend's brother. During questioning for that crime, Gollin made statements that implicated him in the Jenner double murder. Investigators were able to link him through his knowledge of specific details about the crime scene that had not been publicly released. Eventually, Gollin confessed to killing Lindsay and Jason, admitting he had shot them while they were asleep in their sleeping bags. The .45 caliber handgun used in the Jenner murders was also recovered, further solidifying the case against him. Theories: what went wrong? For years, the prevalent theory was that the killer was a random assailant, a drifter, or a local disturbed individual. The lack of connection between the victims and the perpetrator made it seem like a truly unprovoked act of violence. What went wrong in the initial investigation wasn't necessarily incompetence, but rather the sheer randomness of the crime and the killer's ability to evade detection for so long. Sean Gollin was known to have a violent history and lived somewhat off the grid. He later claimed he had planned to rob the couple but killed them when he saw them sleeping. The motive appears to have been robbery, escalating into murder, though the exact psychological impetus for such brutality on 2 sleeping individuals remains chilling. Conclusion: Sean Gollin was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Lindsay Cutshall and Jason Allen, bringing a long-awaited resolution to this haunting case. While justice has been served, the tragedy of 2 young lives so senselessly taken on what should have been a peaceful night continues to resonate. The case highlights the terrifying reality of random violence in seemingly safe places. What do you think about how long it took to solve this case and the eventual way it was resolved? Leave your thoughts or theories below, and if we see something compelling, we might include it in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Cold Crime Cases, where the forgotten never stay forgotten, so you can get more interesting true crime stories that are really cold and will send a chill down your spine.